Rene Dunnagan here, showing you a tutorial on how to do a pouring technique using a dirty dump. So I'm going to show you the materials first. We've got our acrylic black paint, phthalo green, titanium white, and cobalt blue. We're also going to be using a pouring medium to thin out our paint and our silicone to increase our cell action. I'll explain that in a moment. We'll need some cups and some craft sticks. I'm a fan of the larger ones, but these work well too, so whatever you have, just use it. You'll also need a canvas, and I'm using a 12 by 12. I think it's really easy to start with this size because it's easier to move your paint around. And you'll want to put some push pins on the underside so that you can drain your paint off and dry your painting quicker. So you'll see I have a few cups already prepared, and I'll talk about amount of paint in just a moment. So we're going to start with mixing our paint. I'm going to mix one, and then I'm going to stop the camera and we'll go ahead, I'll mix the others and then you'll see the consistency. So basically you want, for this painting I wanted blue, green, a tiny bit of black, and about double the white that I would have on anything else. So we're going to pour some pouring medium. I'm going to mix the green so that you can see that. Actually, I don't recommend mixing all of this on your canvas because you can get that kind of messy. So I'm going to pour some pouring medium in here, and this is going to really dilute the paint and make it a better pouring consistency. Because as you can see, very thick and gloppy right now. And we want this to move freely on our canvas. So we're gonna mix, 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 mix. You always want to mix really well before you add more medium or water. So I'm going to do a little bit of each. Now you can do house paint, you can do acrylic craft paint, or if you're doing this at Picasso and Wine, cool, you will have some great materials to use as well. You see, that's a little better consistency, smoother, but not quite there. So I'm going to add just a smidge of water to bring this to a more fluid consistency. And again, we're going to stir, 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 stir really good. So always checking, making sure you're getting the sides of that cup. It'll stick really well to that. There we go. Now we've got it more fluid. That's going to move on our canvas much better. So I'm going to stop the camera, mix the rest, and you will be able to see it all once it's complete. So now I've got all the paints mixed, and you're going to see the consistency is very fluid. I've mixed the white just a little bit thicker than everything else. I'm just doing a little experiment, so we're going to see how that goes. Typically I do it thinner, but I just want to try something different. You'll see the green flows pretty nicely here. And then of course the blue. And we've got just a tiny bit of black. We don't want to overwhelm the painting. We've got pretty dark colors here, so we're just going to experiment. I feel like there's really no wrong way to do this. There's really just trial and error. So for all you perfectionists, not that I know anything about that, but if you're a perfectionist, just have fun, experiment, and try things. You can start with small canvases, small amounts of paint, and just have fun with it. Alright, so what we're going to do is we're going to pour everything into another cup. This is what we call a dirty dump. So what we're going to do, pour all the paints. We're going to be a little strategic about it. We're going to put it here, flip it over, lift it, and that's where we get the dirty dump. So let's go ahead and start combining our paints. Now, before we do that, sorry, I almost forgot, we're going to put in some silicone. And I'm going to do about 1 or 2 drops, one for the small amount. It comes out really fast. Okay, and I'm going to leave it out of the white paint. I'm going to just stir, 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 light stir. That should be good. Okay. Now we're going to start with our white. I'm going to pour that in the bottom. And we're just going to layer these. Get some blue in there. And the closer you pour to your cup, the more it sits on top of your paint, versus holding it high, it's going to go deeper down. So I'll show you what that looks like. Hopefully you can see it in the cup here. So it goes down to the bottom when you hold it up high. I'm going to put some more white. I'm going to drop it down so it goes in the middle and sinks. Pull a little at the top. Let's try just a smidge of black. Actually, that's a little thick, so I'm going to put a little more water. And if you recall, I poured a little pouring medium in and a little bit of water to thin these out, get them a pouring consistency. So don't fret if you put too much water and you make it too thin, or if it's too thick, you can always add more to get it back to the right consistency. So that, I think that's good. I'm just going to pour just a tiny bit. And then I'm just going to spin my cup a little. Actually, we'll do more white. A little more blue. Do a little white on top of that. Green. Twirl that around in there. Do a little black again. Not a lot, otherwise it'll get too dark. All right. You can see it's kind of making some cool waves in there already. I'm really excited to see what this turns out to be. Oops, making a mess on the table. Last bit of green. Let's finish off the blue. Waste not, want not. I like to stretch my paints, make them go really far. All right, and then we're going to top it with the rest of the white. All right, now this is where the fun really happens. So take your cup, grab your canvas, put it on there nice and tight, hold it down, flip it over. Remember, we have our push pins under here so that we have a way to dry these. A little tap, tap, tap. Now, there's a couple things you can do here. There's a technique where you can lift just slightly, put it back down. This is called, I believe, I'm probably going to forget the term, tilting. You can also move your cup around the canvas as it's stuck down. That'll change the way it looks. Or you can just lift it, which is what I'm going to show you today. So let's see how this goes. Ooh, I'm digging that. Okay. Now, some people freak out about this, but I really like to see the cool things that come out of the cup into that blob. And everything's going to change as we move it around, but check this out. Now, the secret to doing this well is to get it just to the edge, every edge, before you dump it over the sides. This is why I like to start with a 12 by 12 square canvas. Just going to move it ever so gently. Just tilt it towards your corners. If a little bit goes off, that's fine, or a lot, depending on how much paint you had on there. Now, these circles, those are cells. I talked about those earlier. You can do different things to get bigger cells. There's some different mediums that will give you bigger cells. The silicone lubricant will do that, as well as a blowtorch. Now, I've gotten it to the edges, so now I'm going to just focus on these corners and dropping it over the edges. And the secret to not sticking your fingers into your paint is to grab your canvas from the wooden parts underneath. So nobody likes a big thumbprint in their painting. Okay. I really like how this green has pooled over here, but I also like not having to frame my paintings. So I tend to cover the edges. So I'm just going to turn this so that you can see. Just going to keep tilting that. I tried doing this without gloves and I found I was way more creative when I wasn't worried about all the paint on my hands. All right, so you'll see we've got these little corners and they're kind of naked over there. So let's make sure we cover those. And you can just grab some paint by the nearest corner, that's important, and dab it onto those corners. Just so that we don't have a stark edge there. Make sure we get those good. And the key is to do the corner that you're working on because those are going to be the right colors versus like this one's very teal looking, whereas this one is much more green. So I try to grab the paint right next to it. Get those good. And this one's got some pretty blues and teals that are totally different than the rest of the painting. All right, so there we have a pour technique. That's a dirty dump. Now you can let this sit on top of the push pins now. I like to do this at home on cardboard. You just flatten it out. Just very carefully put it down like so and let it dry for a couple days and you'll be ready to hang your masterpiece.